All right, so this is my presentation. The book that I chose to read was called um, Sketching from the Imagination, Creatures and Monsters. Um, this is a bit of a rundown of my table of contents. I'm going to essentially just be looking at the topics that are um, regular in this assignment. So without further ado, let's begin. Yeah, so as previously said, the book that I chose was Sketching from the Imagination. The reason why I chose personally this book was because I felt like it could kind of benefit me for the next trimester, as much of the work that I would be doing would be creature design. The book isn't actually written by one author. What actually makes it really cool and insightful is that it compiles the work of over 50 illustrators and their testimonials and practices and techniques in order to give a robust insight into what industry experts think like. There's a foreword written by Alan Williams, and it is produced by a company called 3D Total Publishing. So just to kick off the bat here, these are some illustrations that'll be seen throughout the book. So as you can see, there's like a whole different range of styles. Some of these have been really particularly like beneficial for me, but others not so much. Regardless, there's lots of advice right throughout. The topic relevance of this book. Um, to be honest, a surface level reading of the book, it's not going to be 100% for a designer. It is a book written for illustrators, people wanting to learn creature design. But there's a lot of practices in this book that sort of tie into the whole design thinking side of creativity. And if enough effort is put in to really try and take in and invest what the book has to put out, there is a lot of consideration that may come out of that in regards to one's own creative practice. Um, Personally, it's extremely relevant though, because I am an illustrator and a designer, and it's a great source of reference. It encourages me to reconsider my own practice and to redefine concepts of design and the designer. The book Porpoise, it's just a little joke for you. Um, there's two distinct purposes, all right? There's to inspire curiosity, right? There's all of these works sort of showing off the most talented people from across the industry, or at least a slice of it. Um, and yeah, it's extremely inspiring to get you wanting to create your own art. It's also to guide becoming artists, right? So get them inspired and guide them. The key ideas and takeaways. So usually I feel like this section of the book report is handed in terms of like chapters, but there wasn't actually chapters in this book. There was just like sort of the distinction of subheadings and then each personal contributor. Those subheadings were like what's on the right there, the inspiration ideas, materials, techniques, and other notes. In the inspiration ideas was kind of like what they were thinking, materials, what they're using, techniques, how to use them, and other notes are sort of key things that the artist might have wanted to say. And we'll get into a few of those soon. Um, so yeah, believable creatures, sort of finding reason to your inspiration, reflecting on things like their diet and their habitat, rather than just illustrating off the top of your head and sort of being abstract about it, to really dig into research to sort of lead design. Style and interpretation, that it's sort of talking about to not just copy an artist, but it's actually better to look at other creative works and try and understand what led them to those choices. A personal dictionary, that sort of contribution was about keeping a sort of library of everything that you create for your own reference down the line. Bending the rules, is one that is extremely relevant to design, and that you have to sort of understand what you're dealing with and what elements you're dealing with before you start to break them. And it really digs into understanding that stuff. Posing, sort of just how you frame and compose compositions, really gives a lot of effect that otherwise the impact might not be there in a design or character illustration. And the big picture, having a concept behind everything you do, will give you parameters to design within. So always sort of look uh, at from a large scale and sort of narrow your way in to sort of know what your objective is when designing. Be brave, take risks, building visual libraries, always be researching, right? Learning by observation, be trying to work and then look and work and look and being honest with, your failures and your successes and always seeing inspiration everywhere, new ideas everywhere and uh, implementing motion in art to sort of really build intrigue that even in a static image that can be achieved by the right sort of repetition and gesture, and the chase for style, to not really consider too much about style but to really just look and try and learn from the world and have that influence what you create. New ideas generate, so there's a lot of different things to it, but essentially to condense it, uh, there's four things. Art is design. There's a distinction in art. Not all art is built the same. There's doodling, and then there is studying type of illustration. That part was extremely helpful for me because it kind of made me realize that it's actually really important to have integrity and deliberation behind your creative practice. Brainstorming, the importance of just getting all these different ideas out there and not really caring if they don't look cool, but just trying to come up with different solutions to a problem. Learning sight, really learning to look at the world and see like what exists in nature and in practice, and how can I learn from that? Whether it be an artist's say style, or the anatomy of a creature, or somebody's design techniques, and how to steal. When looking at other designers, it's important that we don't just copy, but we try and understand what they're doing. These 4 points were gathered after synthesizing all 50 artists' notes. And how I've benefited. Well, the truth is, my art is the doodling. It's a lot of what I do. And this caused me to really reconsider how I approach drawing. And as we'll soon find out, there is a lot of impact to that. This is more examples of my art, just very doodling style stuff. Um, So, in order to help me have something to build upon, I asked for some contribution from Josh in our class to give me a sort of creature concept to then sort of base my design around. The creature was a lowland sort of uh, herbivorous rainforest creature or this bird creature. I went with the rainforest one. So I looked at different animals that I thought looked cool and tried to like tie them together. I ended up creating this, which while it didn't perfectly match the brief, I tried to get some sort of friendly sort of shapes in there, like a frog and a cat and a mole. Um, to be honest, and look back at it, it could be better, but this is my first time doing this, and I think what I just learned was how to really take different ideas to create something that looks a little bit more believable than my doodling characters. The challenges of the reading process. Well, I was working against an extremely tight schedule, and I wasn't entirely able to commit myself to meditative observation of the text, which I think is really important in a book like this. Then the other one is the short form, sort of like story, personal reflection structure meant that a lot of the meaning inside the book had to really be pulled out by me, which meant I had to spend an extra bit of processing time. If there's one essential lesson, it'd be don't create, compose. Um, Essentially, what I'm getting at here, from what I've learned, is that there's a difference between the mindset when one's calling themselves a creator, like I often do, to calling yourself a composer. To create would mean to generate out of nothing, but to compose is to rearrange. And I think what I really learned was that importance of rearranging existing elements in design. Um, and these are sort of like people who are able to do that further down in their careers, and sort of what it can end up with then done perfectly. We got an eel plus a hammerhead shark in the left one. In the middle one, we got a shrimp and a man. In the right one, if you turn your head a little, it's a rhino in a town. A second idea would be that good design always starts with a brief. So always really work out what is your goal when creating. Reception and recommendation. I sort of see myself relating to this man here because I did like it. It wasn't exactly what I was looking for in the beginning, but it ended up really inspiring me a lot. And I'd recommend it because I think that anybody getting into illustration or design can really learn a lot from these talented artists. What I'm reading next is going to be another drawing one. It's hopefully going to enable me to succeed in my major. And it's How to Draw by Scott Robinson. Anyway, that's the end of my presentation. Thank you so much for the extension and for hearing me out.